Hello students, welcome to our section on the introduction to the agreements on the SAT. So when you look at the SAT English or the reading and writing section as the College Board calls it, there are various sections and agreements is one of such section. From agreements we are going to move on to something which is known as the standard punctuations. These are all a part of the standard English conventions on the SAT. Normally on the test, you might find 2 to 3 questions out of the 27 based on the concepts of agreements in English. Agreements basically would mean the agreements between the parts of speech. The parts of speech in English. That is what the agreement would mean like, or would look like. So now let's deep dive into the concepts of the agreements on the SAT. Before we go on to the types of agreements that SAT asks you for, let us understand the parts of speech, because as I have already told you that agreements are basically based on the parts of speech. Now we don't need to teach this on the SAT because this is basically school level English. But then still, let's go through very quickly the parts of speech. The first one obviously is the noun, which is the name of anything that is existent, that is people, places, things, animals, right? These are some examples, right? The sun shines, Anna goes to school. The ones which are in red are all nouns. These are all names of things, right? Pronouns are a word that can be interchangeably used in place of a noun, or it can replace the noun in a sentence. These are some of the pronouns, common pronouns, he, I, its, me. Remember that this, its, its is different from its, right? We will deal with this later in the section of the SAT. John is hungry, he wants to eat. Right? He becomes a pronoun naturally. Verb, a word that shows action, right? Okay, run, go, have, invite, laughed. The dog and the cat are running, right? Are and running, right? Are basically the verbs. This is a special word in English. It is called the auxiliary verb, right? Okay, we will come to that in some time when we do the verbs. Adjectives, okay? So a word that describes the noun: angry, brave, healthy, little, old, red, smart. All these are adjectives. Needless to say, brown dog, fat cat, big garden. The types of garden, the type of cat, the type of dog, right? Adverbs is obviously that goes with the verb, and adjective is something that goes with the pronoun or the noun, right? Obviously. On the SAT, there is a very basic section when they test you between the use of an adjective and an adverb. We will come to that. But then, yeah, for now, we need to understand what's an adverb. An adverb is something that describes the verb, right? Like badly, fully, hardly, nearly, right? Nearly missed. Nearly did what? Missed. That's a verb, right? So he runs quickly. How does he run? He runs quickly, eats very slow, right? Okay, fine, very slowly. Okay, things like that. Articles, they're not something that are tested too much on the SAT, right? But then, yeah, an article, there are two types of articles, right? The a and an, which is called the indefinite article, right? And the, which is called the definite article, right? Okay, the god, the cat, right? Definite article. A specific cat means the cat, right? Any random cat, a cat, right? Okay, I went to see a doctor today would mean that I went to meet any XYZ random doctor. I went to see the doctor today would mean that both of us know which doctor I am referring to. Prepositions very important for the SAT because these are subtle changes of preposition that SAT uses in order to trick you with question, right? Shows the relationship between words in a sentence, right? Above, before, except, form, in, near, all these are prepositions, right? Anything that, any part of the sentence that starts with a preposition is called a prepositional phrase. And this prepositional phrase is basically used very astutely on the SAT, which we are going to see eventually. I'm going to my garden, right? To my garden, right? Where? How am I going? Where am I going? I'm going to my garden, right? I'm traveling by a bus. What is the time? By your watch, right? These are correct way of using prepositions. Conjunctions, again, something that is very subtly used on the SAT, right? Connecting words, words that connect, right? Not always all sentences are used or connected using these conjunctions, but that is something for another day. We will save it for another day. As of now, conjunctions are words that are used to connect, right? And, but, yet, so, right? Before, unless, either, neither, because, since, these are all conjunctions. Okay, sometimes we may use a different part of speech to connect, but we are leaving that for another day, right? Very commonly the conjunctions are acronymed as fanboys, very nascently. So these are acronymed as fanboys, right? Okay, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so, right? Okay, these are the basic conjunctions. We will have some use of that when it comes to the SAT. And interjections are sudden feeling exclamation words, right? Express a strong feeling, aha, gosh, great, hey, all these things, right? Oops, right? I spilled rather the milk, right? Conjunction, something that you need to understand in eventually. Prepositions, we need to work on this one. We need to work on adverbs. We need to work on our adjectives. We need to work on our verbs. We need to work on pronouns, and we need to work on nouns. So that leaves us with interjections generally not really tested on the SAT, and articles generally not really tested on the SAT. So the basic agreements on the SAT would look something like this. There are 7 types of agreements which SAT tests you for, right? These are the basic ones. Obviously, we will do each one of those in details in the lectures to come. The first one is the noun number agreement. Okay, so fine, whenever you have a noun, right? Whenever you have a noun, it is associated to a number, right? It is associated to a number. It might be a singular noun, it might be a plural noun. The number of the noun decides the verb that goes with it, right? The verb or the verbs that go with it is decided by the number of the noun. So whether the noun and the number agree, right? Whether the noun and the number agree is something that is tested on the SAT, right? Okay, then the verb tense agreement. Of course, we are going to go through the verb tense agreement once we start with verbs. Verbs have got basically 2 properties: 1, the time, and 2, the tense, right? Tenses are nothing but subdivisions of time, right? So we are going to come to that. The verb form agreement. So the forms of the verb, right? In which form the verb is being used is something that we need to understand and we need to imply. So these are the things that we are going to do when we do the verb. The noun number agreement is something that we are going to do when we do the noun, right? Then we come to adjectives. So as I told you when I was describing the parts of speech, that adjectives and adverbs, right? These are some things that the SAT tests you for, whether we have done the correct use of adjective, which obviously goes with the noun or the pronoun, or we have used an adverb which should go with a verb, right? So we are expected to know the difference between the two and the proper usage of adjectives and adverbs. So we are going to take that up in the future lectures. And the pronouns, right? The pronoun antecedent clarity. Basically, the antecedent is the noun that the pronoun is replacing, right? The antecedent is the noun that the pronoun is replacing. So if I say that Sam is handsome, right? Sam is handsome. He is 6 feet tall, right? Okay, he replaces Sam. This is the antecedent, this is the pronoun. So the clarity between the whether the correct noun is being used, correct noun is being replaced by the correct pronoun, the clarity between the two being tested on the SAT. So we'll come to specific examples in the lectures that follow, and you'll be able to understand what we mean by that. The pronoun antecedent agreement. Yes. So one is the clarity part, the other one is the agreement part, right? Of course, I cannot write Sam is handsome and she is 6 feet tall. So this would not agree with Sam when it comes to gender, right? So goes without saying, but then yeah, there are more complicated examples that SAT presents us with. And the pronoun case agreement, right? This we will only be able to understand once we deal with the noun cases, right? Which we are going to eventually see when we do our section on nouns. So stay tuned. The next lecture will be on the properties and the analysis of nouns.